a little historical story here. Peter and Eileen and Dorothy came in this caravan in 1962, having been running a hotel in Forres, and running it along rather unusual lines. They had a kind of an esoteric Christian background. They had been involved in kind of spiritual groups for a period before this, and had been meditating and had been influenced by Eastern meditation teachings and so on. And they were running the hotel along the lines that we that we still run the community, which is basically if there's an issue to be discussed or to be decided upon, to discuss the issue, to put all the facts on the table, but then to go into a meditation in order to resolve or to decide upon the matter, and to find the resolution in the meditation. So, and it's called attunement, and Eileen was the one who did this most kind of deeply. She would meditate for long periods of time on the topics of the day and come to some kind of resolution in her mind through what she called her inner voice, the guidance that she received from within. So it was along the lines of this guidance that they were running this hotel, and running it reasonably well, but it didn't agree with the owners of the hotel. At some point the owners decided that they should go, so they were sacked. And at that point they had very little money. It was close to winter, so they looked around with their caravan for somewhere to pitch it, and ended up in Findhorn. And at the time it was a very barren, it was already a caravan park, but it was a very barren sand spit. And nothing grew there, almost nothing grew there. It was just very harsh, very windswept. They arrived there with their 2 children and moved into the caravan and immediately started growing food because they needed to, and started growing enormously large vegetables. So the story goes, the story, the myth, it's a bit, it's already shrouded in time now. But the story goes that they were growing very large vegetables. There's talk of 40-pound cabbages and so on, that attracted a lot of interest from outsiders. And people came from all over the world to see what was going on there. And they were doing the gardening according to, again, to Eileen's guidance. And also at this time, Dorothy McLean was also meditating and getting in touch with what they called, and what still seems to be, was still termed unseen beings that operate within the garden. And the kind of conceptions of these unseen beings varies from person to person, but some people believe strongly in elves and fairies, and others believe more strongly in what's called devas, which is kind of more like the spirit of nature that operates in the garden. Anyway, then and still now, people communicate with these unseen beings in order to develop the gardens along more natural lines. So Eileen was getting this guidance, and so was Dorothy, about how to grow vegetables. Peter was enacting the guidance because he was a very kind of can-do kind of character. He'd been in the Air Force, and so he was planting, he was designing and building the gardens. People came to see it. People were impressed and stayed, and so the community was born. It was never the intention of the founders to develop a community as such. It developed organically. And so this is the founders, the 3 founders on the right, and a 4th character, David Spangler, who came in the 70s and helped them establish the kind of educational system which we still have today. The meditation is done in the round, and this is the main meditation room in the park where people have been meditating for 40-odd years. It's a very powerful space. This is the equivalent in the hotel. Oh, what I didn't mention was that the hotel they were fired from was the one that we bought back in the 80s, the 70s, 80s. So they went back and bought that hotel, and it's also another campus in the sense that we have some staff living there and a whole lot of guest accommodation. And this is the sanctuary there. This is a 3rd sanctuary in the park called the Nature Sanctuary. It's a kind of little hobbity building. And meditations occur here daily as well. But what also occurs here is our version of communal singing, which we call Taizé singing. Do people know of Taizé? It's a monastery in France that has developed a style of kind of devotional singing. Well, we've adopted that style as well. So every morning there's communal singing in here. And it's another form of meditation. There's several things we do as a kind of meditation, do meditatively. And this kind of singing, simple songs, but melodic and done communally is one of those meditations. And interestingly, I've been a person all my life who believed I couldn't sing and was told I couldn't sing. The woman I was married to and my two children sang beautifully, and they used to sing as a trio. They never allowed me to sing with them because they said I couldn't sing. So I believed that. And then I came here and I discovered this form of singing, and I joined, and I found when I had a good singer on either side of me, and the music was easy and simple and melodic, I could actually sing quite well, and people told me that. So that's an example of transformation, of the kind of personal transformation that can happen in Findhorn and happens regularly. So I found my voice, and I've been singing ever since. This is another example of the attunement process. At the beginning of a work session, this is typically what will happen. People will link hands and take a few moments to what's called go inside, to find a place of stillness and to just connect with the work of the day, or the qualities that one wants to bring to the work of the day, which might be love and efficiency and gratitude, whatever it is. Someone will invoke some qualities probably. And it's a way of kind of dropping the issues that might have come up for you during sleep or on the day before or whatever, and just bringing yourself present into the space and into the place and into the work that has to be done. The same thing happens before a meal. We link hands. It's basically a grace before a meal. It's a kind of a blessing of the meal.
2 minutes.
Okay, so I'll speed it up. Another thing we also do is dance. We call it sacred dance. It's traditional circle dances from all around the world, but you'll recognize a lot of these dances. There's a lot of Israeli dances and dances from other cultures. And in the park we have a hall, a performing arts centre. This is our Hadarokal, if you like, our community centre. And upstairs there's a meeting room, but predominantly it's for meals. We eat there twice a day, lunch and dinner. It's not compulsory, it's optional of course, but most of us eat lunch there. Fewer people eat dinner there. We have a shop. We treat our own sewage, so this is now coming to the environmental, ecological side of the community. Since the beginning of the 90s, I guess, that's been a second impulse. And it began about that time with the construction of this very, these days not so sophisticated. In fact, the technology has moved on since then, but still this operates brilliantly well. It's in fact way under capacity for the most part, and it treats the sewage on site through biological means. We have a new art centre. This is 2 or 3 years old. It has studios, an exhibition space. We run all kinds of art and craft courses out of that constantly. And we generate more electricity on site than we can possibly use. The hotel has wonderful gardens, has a wonderful Victorian ballroom that we use for dance and workshops and so on. And a dining room that's equally beautiful. And so it's a fine resource, and we use it well, and it's very ecological in the sense of, in this building we've got 80 to 100 people sharing a single building, and in that sense, sharing resources very intensively. The gardens still are gorgeous, and I'm not going to speak to this now because I don't have time, but these are aspects of our ecology which predominantly is based on the courses we run. We try and reduce our carbon footprint continuously, but effectively our ecological practices is predominantly based on the teaching that we do, and encouraging people to take that teaching to wherever they live around the world. The housing is varied, mostly ecological. There's a straw bale house. These houses are made from whiskey barrels, recycled. That's the house I live in. It's a kind of mobile home, but with an ecological specification. This is our shop. Education is varied in scale. This is a typical conference scene, but many of the workshops are kind of experiential. You know, they'll be fun. There'll be collective activity. There'll be perhaps profound activity, and so it's a very kind of experiential learning process. This is our food production, not perhaps of the scale of some kibbutzim, but it's impressive nonetheless. And this is our food production. And I think I'm going to finish on this slide because it's inspiring. We're vegetarian. We have been since the beginning. And our meals are typically for 100 to 150 people, and yet they're of extremely high quality. I never leave a meal feeling unsatisfied.